Every once in a while, archaeologists come across some truly remarkable bizarre discoveries. Sometimes, the finding is so surprising that they are unable to explain what it is they found or how it came into existence. This is a list of such unexplained artifacts for which we have no satisfying explanation. Now let's explain it. Number 1. Atlantis. If the writing of the ancient Greek philosopher Plato had not contained so much truth about the human condition, his name would have been forgotten centuries ago. But one of his most famous stories, the cataclysmic destruction of the ancient civilization of Atlantis, is almost certainly false. So why is this story still repeated more than 2,300 years after Plato's death? It's a story that captures the imagination, says James Romm, a professor of classics at Bard College in Annandale, New York. It has a lot of elements that people love to fantasize about. Plato told the story of Atlantis around 360 BC. The founders of Atlantis, he said, were half god and half human. They created a utopian civilization and became a great naval power. Their home was made up of concentric islands separated by wide moats and linked by a canal that penetrated to the center. The lush islands contained gold, silver, and other precious metals and supported an abundance of rare, exotic wildlife. There was a great capital city on the central island. There are many theories about where Atlantis was, in the Mediterranean, off the coast of Spain, even under what is now Antarctica. Pick a spot on the map, and someone has said that Atlantis was there, says Charles Orser, curator of history at the New York State Museum in Albany. Every place you can imagine. Plato said Atlantis existed about 9,000 years before his own time, and that its story had been passed down by poets, priests, and others. But Plato's writings about Atlantis are the only known records of its existence, possibly based on real events. Few, if any, scientists think Atlantis actually existed. Ocean explorer Robert Ballard, the National Geographic explorer in residence who discovered the wreck of the Titanic in 1985, notes that no Nobel laureates have said that what Plato wrote about Atlantis is true. Still, Ballard says, the legend of Atlantis is a logical one since cataclysmic floods and volcanic explosions have happened throughout history, including one event that had some similarities to the story of the destruction of Atlantis. About 3,600 years ago, a massive volcanic eruption devastated the island of Santorini in the Aegean Sea near Greece. The Minoan civilization disappeared suddenly at about the same time as the volcanic eruption. But Ballard doesn't think Santorini was Atlantis, because the time of the eruption on that island doesn't coincide with when Plato said Atlantis was destroyed. Number 2. Underwater cairn. A recently discovered mysterious ancient rock structure under the Sea of Galilee, possibly built in the same era as Stonehenge, has archaeologists stumped. To a certain slice of the population, any unexplained man-made rock pile is clearly evidence of an extraterrestrial visit. Before we get too carried away, let's look at the actual data. The researchers from Ben Gurion University, Tel Aviv University, University of Haifa and Israel Oceanographic and Limnological Research, all in Israel, describe the cairn as a cone of unhewn basalt rocks, measuring approximately 70 meters in diameter and 10 meters tall. The site itself rests near a now-defunct ancient outlet of the Jordan River, an area that has had economic importance in the area since the Bronze Age. Due to various contextual details, the researchers suspect that the cairn was constructed sometime between the 4th and 3rd centuries BCE. Their findings were published in a recent issue of the International Journal of Nautical Archaeology. Underwater cairn. Images from a scuba expedition to the underwater cairn revealed unhewn basalt boulders made up the structure. The divers also saw tilapia fish swimming among the rocks. The paper is relatively thin on details. To date, the only data the researchers have are their side-scan sonar images and new photographs from a dive team. No excavations have yet been undertaken, and thus the purpose, age, and even how the thing was built are all currently up for debate. The researchers aren't even sure if the cairn was assembled on dry land during a period of low water levels in the lake, or if it was purposefully built underwater. Nearby sites have yielded huts and hearths, indicating that at some point in the past, that whole area was above water and inhabited. Other research points to earthquake-related subsidence of the land surrounding the Sea of Galilee. So it is quite possible that all of these archaeological sites in the area were built along the lakeshore, then submerged after an earthquake shifted the land. These days, the cairn sits about 30 feet underwater, surrounded by schools of tilapia fish, which brings us to the researchers' theory that this cairn is supposed to be an ancient fishery, a structure that attracts fish, making it easier to catch them and support a large settlement along the shore. Smaller fisheries have been found in the Sea of Galilee, so this theory isn't as far-fetched as one might think. But until the researchers excavate the cairn and determine if it was meant to be underwater, the purpose of the cairn remains pure conjecture. Number 3. Antikythera mechanism. Antikythera mechanism. Ancient Greek mechanical device used to calculate and display information about astronomical phenomena. The remains of this ancient computer, now on display in the National Archaeological Museum in Athens, were recovered in 1901 from the wreck of a trading ship that sank in the first half of the 1st century BCE near the island of Antikythera in the Mediterranean Sea. Its manufacture is currently dated to 100 BCE, give or take 30 years. The Antikythera mechanism had the first known set of scientific dials or scales, and its importance was recognized when radiographic images showed that the remaining fragments contained 30 gear wheels. No other geared mechanism of such complexity is known from the ancient world, or indeed until medieval cathedral clocks were built a millennium later. The Antikythera mechanism was fabricated out of bronze sheet, and originally it would have been in a case about the size of a shoebox. The doors of the case and the faces of the mechanism are covered with Greek inscriptions, enough of which survive to indicate clearly much of the device's astronomical or calendrical purpose. It is believed that a hand-turned shaft was connected by a crown gear to the main gear wheel, which drove the further gear trains, with each revolution of the main gear wheel corresponding to one solar year. On the front of the mechanism is a large dial with pointers for showing the position of the sun and the moon in the zodiac, and a half-silvered ball for displaying lunar phases. The drivetrain for the lunar position is extremely sophisticated, involving epicyclic gearing and a slot and pin mechanism to mimic subtle variations in the moon's motion across the sky. 2 large dials are on the back of the mechanism. The large upper dial has a 5-turn spiral slot with a moving pointer to show the 235 lunations, or synodic months, in the Metonic cycle. This cycle is almost exactly 19 years long and is useful in regulating calendars. A subsidiary 4-year dial showed when the various Panhellenic Games should take place, including the ancient Olympic Games. The large lower dial has a 4-turn spiral with symbols to show months in which there was a likelihood of a solar or lunar eclipse, based on the 18.2-year Saros eclipse cycle. These astronomical cycles would have been known to the Greeks from Babylonian sources. The inscriptions imply that there may originally have been a display of planetary positions, most likely on the front face, but nearly all the relevant parts are missing. The Antikythera mechanism is the only known physical survivor of a long tradition of mechanical astronomical displays. The widespread existence of such devices can be inferred from references in Greco-Roman literature, particularly in the descriptions left by Marcus Tullius Cicero, that stretch from Archimedes to a poetic reference in the late 4th or early 5th century CE. The exact purpose of the Antikythera mechanism remains speculative, however, nor is it known if the bronze-geared technology and the advanced mechanical design skills involved in its construction were exploited for other applications within the Greco-Roman world. Number 4. Cleopatra's Tomb. Underneath a temple in the ancient ruined city of Taposiris Magna on the Egyptian coast, archaeologists have uncovered a vast, spectacular tunnel that experts are referring to as a geometric miracle. During ongoing excavations and exploration of the temple, Kathleen Martinez of the University of Santo Domingo in the Dominican Republic and colleagues uncovered the structure 13 meters below the ground. The 2-meter-tall tunnel had been hewn through an incredible 1,305 meters of sandstone. Its design, according to the Egyptian Ministry of Tourism and Antiquities, is remarkably similar to the 1,036-meter tunnel of Eupalinos, a 6th century BC aqueduct on the Greek island of Samos, often referred to as a marvel of engineering. The conduit was unprecedented in design and construction in its day. While the Taposiris Magna tunnel isn't without equal, its engineering is nonetheless just as impressive. Parts of the Taposiris Magna tunnel are submerged in water. Though putting aside its resemblance to the Eupalinos tunnel, its purpose is currently unknown. Martinez, who has been working in Taposiris Magna since 2004 in search of the lost tomb of Cleopatra VII, believes that the tunnel could be a promising lead. Previously, the excavations have yielded clues that seem to point to the famous queen and the last of the Ptolemies. Taposiris Magna was founded around 280 BCE by Ptolemy II, the son of Alexander the Great's renowned general and one of Cleopatra's forebears. The temple, the team believes, was dedicated to the god Osiris and his queen, the goddess Isis, the deity with whom Cleopatra courted a strong association. Coins bearing the names and likenesses of Cleopatra and Alexander the Great have been found there, as well as figurines of Isis. We hope you enjoyed our list of 4 mysterious discoveries which are still unexplained. Don't forget to subscribe to my YouTube channel for interesting videos like this.